Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. I think it's not yet good afternoon. Welcome to this session that will be devoted to rethinking Mediterranean relations for the new geoeconomic era. I have the pleasure to moderate this session with a very rich and experienced panel. Mrs. Nouzha Chekrouni. She was former minister of Moroccan community abroad, also minister of women and social affairs, and former ambassador of Morocco to Canada. Then we'll have Dr. Fernando Jorge Cardoso, co-founder of the Executive Director Club of Lisbon, Ferid Belhaj, a senior fellow with me in the Policy Center for the New South, as well as Nouzha Chekrouni. He was vice president of the World Bank. And finally, Mr. Aldo Liga, research fellow for the MENA Center at ISPI. I would like to welcome all of them, and I will begin by asking Mrs. Chekrouni the following question. What opportunities the new Pact for the Mediterranean present for both the North and the South stakeholders? And if you could touch a little bit upon the Moroccan views on this pact, I will appreciate. I would also say that I'm extremely intimidated because I have the presence of one of the artisans of the Barcelona process, my colleague and my friend, Yusuf Al-Amrani, our actual ambassador in Washington, and he was former Secretary General of Union for the Mediterranean. So whatever I say, he might criticize me, but he is most welcome anyway. So please, Mrs. Chekrouni, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here and to be part of this panel. So allow me, Mr. Chair, to make my remarks in Arabic. So please, if you can just use your headphone.
Allow me, chair of the session, first, I would like to remind regarding some elements that I consider pivotal since the launch of the Barcelona Declaration in 1995 to assert and remind on the main pillars of this declaration. It was political dialogue, economic integration, and social cooperation. So what, after 30 years, what happened? It seems after 3 decades that the results are quite limited if this declaration achieved results when it comes to economic integration. And I prefer the term trade cooperation. So it was, yes, it achieved something in that, but it remained limited in politics and social cooperation. And here we wonder, the Euro-Mediterranean space, is it still central when it comes to comprehensive equality and comprehensive exchange and reciprocity? It seems that this space that used to be vital has lost its centrality due to many reasons. First, the transformation from the Mediterranean to the Pacific and Indian Ocean regions due to the rising of new forces such as India and China. Another thing is related to conflicts, internal conflicts of Europe. There are many factors that contributed to the recession of the European power in this region. I can mention as an example the Brexit. Brexit had a huge influence and also the old population, the seniority of the population, and also nationalism in politics, and this includes some social conflicts as well as energy crises and the Ukraine war. And here I would like to assert that among the factors is Europe paying attention to its east at the expense of its south. And so in light of all of that, we confirm that there are factors related to the south as well. There is no unified vision that gathers the south and the north for real cooperation. And the neighborhood policy failed to create such real cooperation, and there was slow pace of any achievements in economics and the social aspect. Also, there are crises in the Mediterranean. First, the Arab-Israeli conflict, or more specifically Palestinian-Israeli conflict, in addition to the post-2011 conflicts, instability in Libya, Syria, despite the fact that there is some sort of recovery right now that we are seeing, and in addition to migration issues. And here I reconfirm that in migration we do not share the same views with the North Mediterranean on how to manage these issues. And all of these factors have pushed the South Mediterranean countries to attempt to find solutions and partnerships and diversify the partnerships. And that includes Morocco, which has opened real horizons in diverse relations when it comes to enhancing their power and partnership in the African continent, and I can comment on that later as well, and also openness to a diverse power such as China, including the One Road, One Belt project, and other forces or powers such as the USA. And so I can conclude this intervention, my first intervention, by saying that this all doesn't mean that the failure is the destiny of these relations. We have great potential, and in light of this potential, Morocco can play a distinguished role. So there is a strategic interest for Europe to strengthen its partnership with the South due to many reasons. First, the stability of the North cannot be achieved without the stability of the South, because of the geographic proximity between them. Also, enhancing cooperation will reduce so many risks. First, we are a strong ally, specifically in Morocco, in managing migration issues, and we cannot strengthen our partnership in anti-terrorism and cross-border crime without these relations and cooperation, and also contribute to political stability by a joint management of migration.
Can you just tell me if maybe in few words, what is your assessment of the new pact for the Mediterranean? There is still some glimpse of hope that things will improve, or is it the same business as usual compared to the Barcelona process?
بالتأكيد أن الميثاق الجديد حول
The new pact on the Mediterranean aims for more joint prosperity and cooperation. Of course, this opens horizons to Morocco, but quite quickly I may mention why it's very important, because we need to assert that this region has over 25% of the maritime transportation in the world, and so economically it's quite important. Something that is very important for Morocco is that in the framework of this pact they have achieved advancement. It's less than membership, but it's advanced. So all markets are open for Morocco, minus the institutions. And this opens important horizons for Morocco. However, This pact, this agreement, and its philosophy remains contingent upon the achievement of the European interests at the expense of other interests. Opening the mechanisms of relations depends on all of that, and opening markets in Morocco and in the south. But we need to mention that Morocco has great potential, including green energy, solar energy, wind energy, and this could be beneficial in supply and financial support from Europe to create added value. And in addition to that, Morocco, and in line with its policy to promote the South cooperation and the Royal Atlantic Initiative, and also based on the infrastructure and the Dakhna port, opens new horizons, not only to connect the South Mediterranean and its north, but also to connect between Africa and the Gulf and Europe. Thank you.
A very simple question.
Then,
Mr. Fernando, Jorge Cardoso, on which aspect do you think the European Union should concentrate to make the pact relevant and yield results for the north and the south shore of Mediterranean?
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to come to this forum and to this session, particularly to the Policy Center for the New South that brought me or invited me to be part of the panel. I belong to a country, to an Atlantic country, which is Portugal, but it is the more Mediterranean of the Atlantic countries, by history, by demography, by gastronomy, by architecture. For centuries of relationship with people on this part. So we feel very comfortable amongst the Mediterranean countries. This is first. Second, we have 5 major partners in this part, which is interestingly, it is a dynamics in the last years in which our trade, imports and exports, and also investments with the Mediterranean countries in the southern part and also in the eastern part are rising. Now it is 3% of trade in Portugal. Our 5 major partners are 1, by far, Morocco, 2, Turkey, 3, Egypt, 3, Algeria, 4, Egypt, and 5, Tunisia. These are really, we are making investments mostly in Morocco. That's very interesting because historically speaking, part of us are Moroccans. Having said that, what I would like to say about your question is the following. I think that all of us must understand that European Union is not a geopolitical entity. European Union is 27 countries with 27 geopolicies. And we have a commission to which we ask to coordinate and lead the external trade. And this is the biggest strength of the European Union. Trade and cooperation. Part of the cooperation, because 85% of the cooperation bilateral in European countries. Having said that, when we speak about the Pact for Mediterranean or the European or the Union for Mediterranean or the MENA countries, etc., one has to understand that the European Commission has very limited power to deal with questions that have to do with migration, with war, and with security. These are the countries. This is the Council. And we are not, let's say, an homogeneous entity when we speak about, for example, Italy. Not you, Italy. And France. They are on opposite sides regarding Libya conflict. Every one of us knows that, and they know also. But the same happens to Turkey, to Egypt, to the other non-European Mediterranean countries. So if we look at wars in the Mediterranean, we can see this very well. There are a maritime problem, and Mediterranean is a very important already. It has been, it is, it will be in the future, a very important maritime corridor. And all of us know that we have problems between Greece, Cyprus, and Turkey has problems with Egypt on these issues. All these things, what I mean with this, I mean that we should not raise our expectations too high. When we raise our expectations too high, we will be disappointed. But if we put our expectations low, maybe we'll be very much optimistic and very much in line with what is the reality. In the non-European Mediterranean countries, there is no process of any kind of regional integration or regional coordination even. There are bilateral relations, as all of you know. And there are also contradictions and wars. Sudan is a Mediterranean war, in the sense that we have countries that are in different sides of the Sudan conflict, like in Libya also. And if we look at what's happening with Cyprus, we have also another question. And of course, I'm not speaking about the elephant. I mean Israel and the Palestine war in this moment, or the Israeli-Arab conflict. So my point is that this part of cooperation, this part of the Pact for Mediterranean, or the Union for Mediterranean, is an important part to make us to have something that we call a common instrument. But there are bigger forces than this, and the bigger forces than this are the national interests and the fact that we have a confrontation of geopolitical points. So I am not a pessimistic. My point is that we should not raise our expectations too high. To finish, I have just come from another panel in which transatlantic relations were dealt with. And I believe that Mr. Trump, with this national security, has done a very, very good, a very nice job for Europe. Because probably Europe will wake up, and European countries, because you also have to admit this, we are not, for example, in France, in Italy, in Germany, in Portugal, we have a part of the organized movements and parties that are against migration. But we have another part that is very favorable to migration. In Portugal, 15% of the resident population are migrants, okay? 15%. We are 10 million. That points 1.5 million. We have no problems, okay? And we are favorable, but 20% of our population is completely against, politically speaking. And the same is happening. And Trump is making us a favor because he declared war to the European integration project, saying that he will support all the national forces that are against it. So maybe the other forces, which are the major forces in my opinion, will rise up, and this will be beneficial for the relationship with the countries in the south and in the east. Very scattered opinions, but that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. see Ferid, Fernando invited us not to be pessimistic. He didn't say to be optimistic. He said not to be pessimistic, to be realistic and pragmatic. In your judgment, while you have been vice president of the MENA regions, you know the realities in North Africa, you know also the interdependence between the two shores of the Mediterranean. What value added do you think the Barcelona 2.0 could bring in terms of parameters of cooperation between the north and the south of the Mediterranean?
No, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be with this great panel. In 1995, we had the birth of a totally asymmetric relationship between the north of the Mediterranean and the south of the Mediterranean. Situation was such that, in fact, we were looking at a Europe that was basically showing the way to reforms to countries that were in need of financing and possibly of policy suggestions. Time flies. Today, we are living in a totally different world, a world that needs a reset of this whole relationship. And that reset is basically driven by the realities on the ground. What do we see today? We see that energy is becoming the main driver of the economy of the Mediterranean. Look at what's happening now in the Eastern Mediterranean with immense wealth in terms of energy, but also immense causes for tensions. Look at what's happening between Cyprus and Turkey, what's happening in this whole deal between Libya and Turkey, what's happening around Egypt and the Leviathan around Israel, what's happening with the marine Gaza potential. All of those are very interesting dynamics that, if not managed, may turn into incredibly volatile type of situations and conflicts. At the same time, on the western side of the Mediterranean, there is a very strong push for renewable energies, a very strong push for more interaction with Europe. And I'm putting energy at the forefront of the conversation for one simple reason. Today, Europe needs energy. With what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, clearly today, Europe needs to look at other sources. And it happens that those other sources are not very far away. They are basically around the Mediterranean. So this is one main issue. The second issue relates to trade and to the maritime potential in the Mediterranean. Minister Chekrouni earlier mentioned, about 15 to 20% of the world trade is passing by the Mediterranean. Remember, the Mediterranean is 1% of the surface, water surface in the whole world, and it has about 10 to 15 to possibly 20% of the maritime traffic. Third point, very important one, is demography. And what we look at a Europe that is aging, a Europe where issues related to social protection and to basic manpower is becoming an issue. And at the same time, we see on the southern rim of the Mediterranean a very important youth dynamic. I've been telling my colleagues at the World Bank for years, and they got fed up with me on this. By 2050, meaning what, 25 years from now, the Middle East and North Africa region, from Morocco to, say, Iran, will be looking at more than 300 million young people knocking at the door of the job market. 300 million people, young people. And those young people will not find a job in the public sector in the southern rim of the Mediterranean. They will need to find other ways. And those other ways are twofold. Either their own countries, the southern rim of the Mediterranean, will reform their economies, open the economies to more private sector, open the economy to more growth-oriented dynamics, or these young people will turn to migrate. And this is also another issue, the issue of migration vis-à-vis Europe. Europe today, given the political dynamics, is seeing itself as a fortress Europe, erecting walls and striking deals with a number of countries in order to prevent migration. When in fact, down the road, 10, 15, 20 years from now, Europe will absolutely need that new influx of youth in their economy. So these are three tenets, in a way, that for us, for me, Barcelona 2.0 needs to take very much into account, and Barcelona 2.0 cannot be looking like a revival or an anniversary 30 years later. No, it is a total reset of the dynamics between the northern rim of the Mediterranean and the southern rim of the Mediterranean. And when I talk about the southern rim, I'm looking at Morocco all the way to Turkey. This is not just the Maghreb, this is not just all the way to Egypt, all the way to Turkey. And Turkey today is turning into a very important powerhouse when it comes to a number of issues, including trade and including energy. So I'm putting all these issues on the table for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ferid. Mr. Aldo, you say about the positive aspects and about the shortfalls of the pact, and would it allow or enable the European Union to regain maybe influence, not only in the northern Africa or around the Mediterranean, but beyond North Africa in the continent, in the African continent, and also in connection with the Gulf countries that are becoming one of the important investors around the Mediterranean?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you to the Policy Center for the New South. I fear to be much more on the shortfall of the new pact for the Mediterranean. Just to start, at the ceremony of the presentation of the launch of the new EU Pact for the Mediterranean last week in Barcelona, there were only 5 ministers out of 10 from southern neighborhood. And there were, this is much more striking, only 3 out of 27 ministers of foreign affairs from the European Union member states. And of course, it is not a good sign if the overall aim of the pact is the one of relaunching the EU action in the region and restores its credibility after years of inactions, perceptions of double standards and divisions among member states. And mainly after 3 decades in which we have seen all the parameters that were identified as the aim of the Barcelona Declaration, economic and political parameters that were supposed to improve over the last 30 years, actually they have worsened. So I will highlight 3 points. There are some overlappings with what have been said by my colleagues. I disagree some points about the ambition of the European Union, for example, in the region. That, in my opinion, it should be much more political than economic. But I will start trying to draft a preliminary assessment of the pact for what we can retrieve by reading the joint communication, the new pact. It is the only available documents on that, as the action plan will be released at the beginning of next year. The first feature of the pact, in my opinion, is the shift from idealism to pragmatism. And in the pact, there is a strong focus on the need of immediately actionable projects and pragmatic initiatives. So we are let's say, officializing a stepping back of the EU from the dream of building an area of shared prosperity and stability to just trying to find a consensus on specific project. Then the specific projects could be extremely interesting and rewarding, but we are comparing specific projects on energy transition, on trade and connectivity with the idea of the well-being of people and of human political connections between the two shores. Second point, and I underline some positive aspects of the plan. The first of the pact, the first pillar of the pact concerns people and youth, and this is a quite promising innovation. Let's say there are very concrete initiatives on skill developments, human mobility pathways, higher education. There is, for example, the idea to establish a Mediterranean university, to establish double degrees between the two shores, to establish a Mediterranean civic services. This is very good. Or, for example, in preparedness against climate change. A fleet, a regional firefighting fleet in Cyprus, for example. These are very useful things. But there are also a lot of limits which are highlighted by the pact. And in my opinion, the main limit is the fact that the pact does not provide an answer to the main shortcoming of the approach of the European Union that we have seen so far. That is the completely absence of political ambitions in terms of crisis management, conflict resolutions, and mediation. In the southern neighborhood, there are 10 countries. There are at least 3 active conflicts. And in any of those conflicts, the EU has never played a prominent role, apart from the Israel-Palestine conflict, which is quite emblematic, let's say. But for example, in Libya, the EU never proposed its own path to peace nor to dialogue. In the case of Morocco, Algeria, the EU never tried to facilitate top-level meetings, and this is particularly striking because the cost of animosity between Algeria and Morocco is a primary interest for Europe, as it reflects in terms of missed opportunities of economic exchange, but also on political cooperation. Then there is another strong limit of the approach of the EU seen so far. That is the fact that the EU has in some way contributed to the emergence of transactional practices from the southern neighborhood, and also of dynamics of blackmail from formal and informal actors in the region, and I'm referring to the migration policies implemented by the EU and the EU member states, because even if Italy, for example, approve a strategy to tackle with migration, then there is almost always the European Union that finances this plan, as we saw with the Tunisia and Libya. And even on this point, the pact has not any ambition to propose. For what concerns the political engagement in the region, the pact is extremely vague. There is only a provision for the establishment of a regional fora for peace and security. It's just one initiative out of 100 initiatives that are included in the pact. So, to conclude, my impression is that this very strong attention on practical actions, immediately actionable projects on connectivity, trade, energy transition, education, etc., is a way to not, it's a deliberate way not to focusing to the real questions that are political, to the most sensitive and delicate issues that are at the same time the most crucial issues to define a fair just and balanced relations with the southern neighborhood. So I think that with that decision, the Union will struggle to restore its political weight in the region, to regain the political influence Brussels theoretically says that it wants to achieve, and most importantly, it will be difficult to restore trust and a positive perception of the EU among the people of the southern neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldo. Well, I know that these are tentative conclusions about the shortfalls and the advantages, given the fact that we have to wait, I think, for 2026 for the plan of action to be known, and secondly, to know what are the financial resources that will be mobilized in order to implement this pact. We are left with about 8 minutes. I would like to give the floor to the audience. I know that there is somebody who is impatient. He cannot really help it, but allow me to give him the... Please, if you can abstain from a lot of comment, go
straightforward.
Yes,
Thank you,
ahead.
Mohammed, for giving me the floor. And I'm not going to intimidate you because you are my colleague and my friend. But I want to first compliment you because I think the topic is very important today. We need to rethink, to revisit, and to reshape the Mediterranean. For us as Moroccans, it is our space of priority. But unfortunately, it's not working after 30 years. I was in 1995 in Barcelona.
This guy has to be negative in one way or another. You always begin with few
You're
things.
not going to destabilize me. I will continue. Listen, we need to also to talk our partners. Our two partners, Portugal and Italy, very important partners for us, for the region. You know, we need to see the European Union is not giving attention and priority to the Mediterranean, and that's true. That's why we should revisit, as our friend from the Belhaj, revisit the tools. We need financial resources. Europe is looking east, Ukraine, and countries of pre-accession, Moldavia, Belarus, and so on. So there is no room for the Mediterranean. And financially, we were always fighting 1/3, 2/3. And finally, we got nothing. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, after Lisbon Treaty, with the changes in the European Union, EU has not the tools for the Mediterranean.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, you should.
Please, go ahead. Wa alaikum salam.
First of all, thank you, Catherine. First of all, what is your attitude to the concept of great Mediterranean? Because we are, what we say, mostly considering the expression is a great Mediterranean, not as a Mediterranean itself. It's one thing. The second question, did I understand correctly that Sudan is a part of this, what we say, Mediterranean, great Mediterranean? And I have a very interesting question because last year I was a moderator at the same meaning of the conference of Great Mediterranean and paying mostly attention to environment. What's about the Western Sahara area? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, the gentleman in the front.
Good morning and good afternoon also. Professor El-Wardi El-Abbas from Mohammed Fifth University. I teach law. So I have 2 points to ask so as to achieve what you need as goals. The first of all, we need a strategic sense to put it in front of so as to be on time in development, in political sense, and public policies. Secondly, we need to have a peaceful discussion with a lot of partners. And as a third point, we need to have some think tank idea about what we need as economical sense or social sense, and to be equally and to have a balance to discuss all of what we need as opportunities, and to put what we ask all of the economical power in all of the world to be win to win and to be on time to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would say this will be the last question because we have to leave some time for the panelists to respond.
Thank you very much. My name is Iyad. I come from Jordan. My question is, and it could be for Mr. Aldo or maybe everybody. Having the new pact for the Mediterranean on one hand, having the Barcelona Declaration 2.0, having the Commission, now the new role of the UFM, i.e. MED, there's so many elements coming together. To be honest, are we able to build synergies? Are we able to build bridges between all of these actors, all of these policies in action? Taking into consideration the claim that we are trying to be value-based, I agree, transactional, but if we want to be value-based, then how can we make sure that we do what we do based on our values?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. In whatever order you would like to respond.
Yes, just one. In my opinion, the problem is not synergies among the European institutions involved. The problem is the lack of ideas and the lack of a long-term vision on that. Because, for example, since von der Leyen became president of the European Commission, there is this new approach called Team Europe. So a way to put in the same room the European investment banks, the Union for the Mediterranean, and all the other institutions involved. The problem is the fact that we don't have any clear political indications on what the relations between the two shores should be in, for example, 5, 10, 15 years. So without that, the approach is bound to fail. I think every approach is bound to fail.
Thank you. Mr. Cardoso, please, if you have.
As I said, Europe is not a geopolitical entity. If we raise our expectations, waiting for having such kind of European Union political position about this or that, we will be disappointed.
Okay, thank you.
And
yes.
Just to finish, the way forward, I know that academically we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but in reality everything happens at the same time. The way forward, in my opinion, is the modernization of the countries in the Mediterranean area, because they will know what they want to do, and that will be very useful for the European countries and for the European Union. I will put it on the reverse now.
Okay, thank you.
So quite quickly, we look forward to a strategic partnership, but we have the responsibility as the South to work out our problems. Are we capable of doing that? Do we have the political willpower to do that? This question is a huge one, but it allows us to discuss our allies here. And with the question related to the Moroccan desert, this issue is exclusively an interest of the UN, and the final resolution of the Security Council has acknowledged the management of this issue and having it as an autonomous region under Morocco, and this becomes the basis, the only basis to manage relations with the Western Sahara on all preceding all other bases.
The World Bank, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'll say I'm in extra time. Look, maybe it is surely a bias. For me, everything is economic. Everything is economic. We can talk about politics and we can cover it with whatever we want. At the end of the day, you are 14 kilometers away between Europe and Africa and North Africa and the southern rim of the Mediterranean. You have hundreds of millions of young people eager to find a job. If they don't find it in their place, they will go find it somewhere else. If that somewhere else is closed, you are creating tensions, one. Second, we are looking at a European continent that is thirsty for energy. And it so happens that the energy is not there. It's somewhere else. Economically, Europe needs to open up and to wake up and smell whatever coffee there is there, because otherwise, the weak Europe that we see today, that was looked at by Donald Trump yesterday, or the day before yesterday, as in a state of erasure, well, that weak Europe will be even weaker than what it is right now. And third, demography. Today, human capital is becoming a geostrategic asset. And there is absolutely a need for Europe to take that into very much into consideration. Otherwise, we will have 10 years from now, yet another anniversary, and 10 years from now, the situation will be worse than what it is right now. A reset is not just adopting a new charter, signing a new document. We've signed tons of those. You need actionable engagement. And that actionable engagement, frankly, from where I stand, I don't see it. I don't see Brussels doing anything. And I must say, on the other side, I don't see our countries in the southern rim of the Mediterranean moving more forcefully into reforming their economies. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite you for a word of applause to our panelists. And thank you for the audience, and thank you for the Doha Forum for making this event possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.